Hello folks, welcome back. In this tutorial we're going to do some basic animation and movement of video layers in Adobe Premiere Pro. If you want to do some sort of intermediate or more advanced movements of video layers, head on over to After Effects. But if you want to do some simple basic movements, Premiere Pro is a pretty good place to start. Now we're going to do most of our work up here in the Effect Control panel, and we're going to be using some of these parameters that I'm just highlighting here. Now, a little sort of word of warning, if you find that none of these controls or options are highlighted, it's probably because you haven't selected the clip in the timeline. So just make sure you've selected it by clicking on it once, and your options pop up here. Another thing worth doing is if you can click on Fit here, so instead of having the monitor to fit, so the video layer fits the window, put it down to 25%. You'll see why that's necessary a little bit later on. Now up here you've got an option actually to scrub up and down the layer in the Effect Control panel, and I quite like using this option when we're trying to do some animation of video layers. If you find that this option isn't here, it could be that this tab's been selected and it actually hides that option. If so, click here to bring this time marker back in the Effects Control panel. So let's get to work. If you find the video layer hasn't been highlighted, you can double tap it. And now it's been highlighted in yellow. We can sort of grab it and move it around the screen, like so. But at the moment we're just moving it, but we're not actually sort of animating it. It's just being moved in space and it's being left there. So to do some sort of main animation work, we're going to actually open motion here, and we're going to be working with position. Now to get started, what we're going to do is we're going to leave that video layer on the screen in this position in space. We're going to make sure that our time marker is at 0, and what we're going to do is we're going to click on this little stopwatch. When we do that, this little yellow keyframe, it's just been highlighted. At the moment you can barely see it, but it's just there. If I move the time marker out of the way you might see it, but this little yellow tab here, that's a keyframe, and keyframes are crucial to understanding animation. And you'll learn a lot more about them in After Effects. But that little tab means that at 0 seconds, that video layer is going to be there in space. If I move the time marker along to, I don't know, I'm going to go a couple of seconds forward, or yeah, a couple of seconds will do, I can now grab that layer and I'm going to move it off screen like so. Now, as I move it, have a look at the yellow path that's being drawn. That's what's known as a motion path. If you find it hard, folks, to keep a straight movement across the screen, hold the Shift key. It just stabilizes the movement for you. Now that I've moved this off screen, you'll see that at 2 seconds, another keyframe's been set. That means, and admittedly I know I'm not on exactly 2 seconds, but it's near about. But if you click on this, that little yellow keyframe now means that the video layer is here in space. So let's just recap. If I move my time marker back to 0, that keyframe there means that the video layer will be here in space. If I move my time marker along to here, this keyframe means that the video layer will be here in space. Okay, nice. Simple movement using these two keyframes to hold the video layer in space. So the keyframing and animation process in Premiere Pro is a bit of a straightforward one, as you can see. Simple keyframes moving layers off the screen or in the position you want them to be moved in. But I'd like to point out now a couple of things that might trip you up along the way. So I'm going to delete that keyframe and that keyframe, and I'm going to deselect the stopwatch here just to put everything back in its normal place. I'm going to put the time marker back on 0, and let's try a different move just to highlight some problems you might come up against. I'm going to grab this layer and I'm going to move it off screen like so, and I'm going to set a keyframe at 0 seconds. I'm going to move my time marker forward about a second, give or take, that'll do, and move the layer on screen just to set a simple motion path from bottom up to the center of the screen. Okay, it's a very simple move. Now, let's imagine you want the audience to watch that video layer for 2 seconds and then move it off. If I move my time marker, say forward to 3 seconds, so the audience have now looked at the video layer for a couple of seconds and we want to move it off screen, let me grab the layer now and move it off screen. And you'll see that actually a bit of a problem will have come up. Let me demonstrate. I'm going to go back to 0. So my layer is off screen at 0. Whoops, sorry, do that. So my layer's off screen at 0. It comes onto the screen. As you can see, at 1 second, it's now on the screen. But the minute we go off 1 second, it starts to head towards the other keyframe, which I said at 3 seconds. It didn't linger on the screen for the 2 second period that I wanted. But there's a way around that. I'll just show you how to get around that problem. Let's delete that keyframe and let's take ourselves back to 1 second. So the layer started off screen. It came on screen. We then move forward a couple of seconds, and if you click on this tab here, it'll reset the keyframe here. So this keyframe here and this keyframe here are now exactly the same. What we should find now, folks, is that it comes on screen like so, holds for 2 seconds, and now I can go forward to say 4 seconds and drag the layer off screen. Let's see how it looks. So the layer comes in at 1 second, holds for 2 seconds, then moves off the screen. I'm going to point out one more thing that might just slightly trip you up. So again, I'm going to delete these keyframes and just try one other slight scenario, and then we'll wrap up the tutorial. Let me just deselect that position keyframe. Now what I'm going to do is I think I'll leave the video layer off screen. I'm going to take my time marker back to 0. I'm going to set a position keyframe, as you can see here. So the video layer is now locked in space here at 0 seconds. I'm going to go forward to about a second, give or take, move the video layer up onto the screen, like so. I'm going to go forward about another second, give or take, and I'm going to move the video layer off the screen. Now, as you can see, it's starting to bend here at the access point. This is known as a Bezier motion path. And now that's not the effect I'm after. I would like the motion path to go up in a straight line and then move off in a straight line. So it's a right angle. I don't want this curve path here. So the way to get around that is to click on this keyframe. This keyframe here is this access point. I'm going to do a right click like so, go to spatial interpolation, and instead of Bezier, which is curved, I'm going to put it to linear. And as you can see, I've got a nice right angle straight motion path. Let's have a look at that and see what it looks like. That's a bit more like it. The layer comes up and then does a complete right angle off to the right. Yeah, it's quite a mechanical piece of movement, but that's what I was after. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's just a very basic introduction to some of these effect controls that you can apply to animate a layer. We'll look at some further ones in later tutorials. Thanks for listening.